Aloha. Welcome to E Hana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of Grassroots Institute, and I welcome you today. My guest today is, well, actually more than just a guest. He's the president and founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. And today is an interesting day because this gentleman threw up his hands and said, Shikata Ga Nai. And I had no idea what that meant. So we decided that today's program with Jay Fidell, president of ThinkTech Hawaii, will be called Shikata Ga Nai. And with that, Jay, welcome to your show. How are you?
It's your show.
Oh, yes. Well, we call it E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. And that's really what has brought Jay and me together. Okay, tell our listeners and our viewers what Shikata Ga Nai means to you.
Well, it's not just to me, it's to, the Japanese culture. It's a Japanese phrase, and it means it couldn't be helped.
It couldn't be helped. It couldn't be helped.
It couldn't be helped.
Is that kind of like oy vey?
It's an oblique off oy vey.
All right, or maybe Doris Day, que sera, sera.
Que sera, that's very good. That's
there we go. We're dating ourselves here.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
And you live in Hawaii, and why does this expression come to your mind?
because it is a statement that defends complacency.
There you have it.
And, Hawaii is a place of complacency. The word place is in complacency, isn't it?
Well, I'll trust your scholarship there. You did go to law school, so I think you studied a little bit of Latin back then. So, Jay, Hawaii is your home.
It sure is.
What is it that has made Hawaii as opposed to, upstate New York? Where did you grow up?
Downstate New York.
Downstate New York, in the city, okay.
I was born and raised in Queens, in the middle of Queens. And then I emerged. My path took me to Manhattan, where I used to stand under Washington Square Arch at the foot of Fifth Avenue and look up Fifth Avenue, raise my hands, and I would say, "This is my city." That's what I would say.
And that's the beginning of the J. Horatio Alger story.
Yeah, then I left.
That's right. And so what is it that has made this place about which you say, Shikata Ga Nai, your home?
Years.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're just here and you can't do anything about it.
People around, yeah, you get stuck, so it becomes your home,
Well, for those of you who are tuning in perhaps for the first time and who may not know Jay Fidell, he had a distinguished career as a barrister, a lawyer here in Hawaii. We were just joking earlier, he used to wear tennis shoes to chase ambulances, but actually, tell us a little bit about your law career here. And how long did it last?
Oh, well, I was admitted, I graduated law school in 1965 at NYU, and I came out here immediately in the Coast Guard, and I was admitted to the bar here. I was admitted to the bar in New York in 1966, had to go back for that. 1968, I was admitted here, and so I've been practicing here since 1968.
What type of law have you practiced?
Really good.
Really good law. Legal law, for that matter.
Legal, the most legal kind.
Now, you made your fortune in law, and then now you're spending it all on this dream called ThinkTech Hawaii.
Well, I figure I have 2 weeks to go.
There you go. Well, that's the burn rate. Well, what's ThinkTech Hawaii all about, really?
ThinkTech Hawaii was, I don't know how much time we have, but in the year 2000, I was doing programs for the Building Owners Association. A lot of my clients are real estate. A lot of my clients were in the Building Owners Association. And we had a venue at the Hawaii Prince Hotel. That was our monthly luncheon program. But for some reason, on one particular month, they didn't hold the venue for us. We had no venue. So we had to do something unusual if we were going to have the lunch. So we called up the convention center, which was only 2, 3, 4 years old at the time, and had a rule that local programs could not have events at the convention center.
You mean they actually had a rule that anything that makes money they can't do? No.
That's another rule. That still exists. No, this rule was a rule that they wanted only to deal with visiting conventions, not local meetings or conferences or anything like that. And they had stuck to that rule for 3 or 4 years. But I called them up and I said, look, we don't have a venue. We want to do a big program, bigger than our ordinary programs. So we'd like to, be the first local organization to do an event at the convention center. What do you say? Well, of course, they didn't have a lot of events anyway, and they said yes.
There you go.
So there we go. So, the question then was, what kind of event to do?
Yes.
So we decided to do something that nobody up till that point had done, a program on tech, a luncheon program on tech. And it was interesting because our little committee did not agree about how to present this. But ultimately, what we did was we lined up as many people as would fit into a morning at 15 minutes a pop. And we had them walk across the stage and tell their tech stories and then walk off the stage. And it was a tremendous success because nobody knew that there were tech companies here. Terrific. It was like a surprise.
It's kind of like a TED show, so to speak.
Yes.
These short little speeches.
Yes.
So, and you invented that, Jay Fidell.
That was before TED, actually.
Yeah, there you go. That. Okay, and just in a nutshell, what is the purpose, what's the mission of ThinkTech Hawaii?
Raise public awareness.
Public awareness.
As to the importance of technology, energy diversification, and globalism to the future of our state.
All right. All good things and important things for Hawaii. Well, we're now going to get into the mind of this gentleman. You know, when you say Shikata Ga Nai, can't do anything about it. You and I were talking a little earlier about traffic in Hawaii here. And as you know, Grassroots Institute collects all of these lists that research where each of the 50 states or each of the municipalities happens to be. And in 2013, Honolulu has the second worst traffic in the United States. We have the third worst on the continent, if we're part of it.
You could fool me. I would have said the worst of all. But hey.
Well, Los Angeles beat us out a little bit. When do you get stuck in the traffic?
Every time I go out.
Every time you go out.
I mean, it's unpredictable. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It has what they call the flash jam. The flash.
So what's the flash jam?
Can strike you anytime,
That's
any place.
Right. It's a pothole that's being filled without any advance warning.
It's just a jam where you get stuck and you can't go where you need to go. You thought you could go there. You made a reasonable prediction that at that hour and that destination you'd be able to get there, but then you find out flash jam and you're stuck. So in the traffic, okay, what is your mindset? Now most people would have smoke pouring out of their ears. In LA, it would be fire and smoke pouring out.
Right, and isn't this why Mayor Jeremy Harris issued little squeeze balls so that it would reduce the stress while we were in traffic?
Did he do that?
Yes, that's right.
I never got my squeeze ball. But, I would have appreciated that because I used to actually sit there in the traffic and I would thank him.
So why do you
say, thank you, Mayor
There you
Harris.
go.
After that, I used to say, thank you, Mayor Mufi Hanneman. Thank you, thank you. And I really meant it in my own way. Now I say, thank you, Mayor Caldwell. I say it the same way.
Now, Jay, do you really believe we can't do anything about traffic?
Well, that's why I'm calling this under the rubric of Shikata Ga Nai. I think most people sit there and say, well, it can't be helped. It's a Zen thing.
Well, what about the rail?
The rail's not going to help it.
You don't think so?
I hope that somebody will get the message here that rail is not going to have any effect on traffic. Zippo, okay?
On Beretania, we've got this huge parking structure that empties, that has a bus depot on the first level. And I went up there the other day, and the entire floor that I was on, the third floor, was empty. There was no car on it whatsoever. Why do you think we can't get people to buy into these great ideas, come park their car, and then get on a bus?
Well, I don't necessarily think we can't do that. I think we're going to have to work to do that. We're going to have to change our way of living.
Well, I was in Singapore a month ago and talking to someone there, and they said, here in Singapore, we would just shut down all the city parking lots.
Yeah.
See, it's a little bit of a different approach to managing
I think that's
people.
very important. That goes to, this is, that topic that we selected here. This is really good because it underlies so many things. I made a list at lunch of all the things we can talk about. Okay, and everything on that list is underscored by Shikata Ga Nai. So,
is it a conspiracy, or is it in the air? Is it a mindset?
Mindset.
It's a mindset.
It's deep in Hawaii's culture. Can't do anything about it, so sit back and enjoy it.
How does that affect our elections? If people actually do get out there and vote.
Our elections do not become mandate elections. Not really. Some people construe it that way, but indeed, our elections are based on whether you like the guy on a like basis, whether he's part of your crowd, your cohort, whether his mother's uncle's son, something. But it's not necessarily because he's going to deliver the goods. And so, Shikata Ga Nai goes right by all of that. And when the election's over, he said, well, nothing's going to happen.
Could that be why we have some of the lowest voter turnout and registration rates in the nation?
Exactly. Thank you for that.
Well,
you're right on the button with this.
You know, because we're
we were going
grassroots
to call the show
institute.
Right on the Button instead, but we called it Shikata Ga Nai.
Well, you wanted to call it Right on the Button, then I suggested we call it Left on the Button.
I suggested calling it the upright position, but
there you go.
You didn't want to do that.
But, you know, when we go to issues like one of your favorites, drones over Hawaii, how does this mindset, Shikata Ga Nai, fit in with that?
Well, it's a lockup.
Okay.
And I think drones are going to go the same way that GMOs have gone.
All right.
You're going to find, a certain group is going to want drones to be here. One at UARC, research at the university, lots of money involved now. I mean, the country's spending right now today $6 billion a year on drones, and I'll bet you there are drones in Syria in 10 days. You want to bet me? Don't bet me.
I'm not disputing that. But you bring up the specter of the military-industrial complex even by use of the word drone. How about something like UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle for agricultural enhancement?
It's the same thing. It's the same idea.
Well, maybe the same idea, but I think
emotionally charged. That's all.
That's right, and probably 90 to 95% of all the uses of these drones are for agriculture, science, research, weather.
That's
and so
true.
forth.
I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah. So are you a dove? Is that it?
I'm a pragmatist. And we can discuss that
when
too.
I think of drone, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and a series of movies that I think went off into the 12th sequel or something like that. It's evil, military, national security presence looming over us. But, whatever it is, why do you say Shikata Ga Nai about drones? Is it a sense of helplessness we have?
No, drones are technology.
All right.
And you remember that ThinkTech at least began over the notion that we can and should have a tech industry of some kind. Okay?
Well, we can get to that subject.
About exactly what kind of tech industry and whether that properly should include military technology. But the idea is to have a tech industry. I don't know. We don't have enough time for me to give you the whole history, but we don't have a tech industry. We lost that along the way, and I think half of it was opposing technology because it was unfair to give technology incentives. The classic remark, and Sean Howe was the reporter in the Honolulu Advertiser who wrote this story. It was a headline story at the right-hand side of the page, and as a PhD in philosophy, that the right-hand top right of the page is the most important story in the paper, right?
Well, that's a PhD in psychology who would know that, but anyway, continue.
That's true. But it's a common point, isn't there? Between the
absolutely.
Thank you.
You're right.
You may step down. So the thing this story said, rich people found to invest in technology.
Oh, that's a terrible thing.
What a terrible thing that is. And at that point, I said, "This has hit a new low," and that people really don't like technology.
Well, we're getting.
They don't want to do better.
There you go.
They don't want to have an alternative industry. They don't want to diversify. They don't want to attract capital. They don't want jobs for their kids. They don't want an alternative to folding hospital corners all up and down Waikiki.
So, are you saying that one of the reasons for Shikata Ga Nai is because these great technologies, these wonderful ideas that will improve the economy, get hijacked by kind of a bleeding heart liberalism there?
They get hijacked by memory lapse.
Memory lapse.
Memory lapse. The state made a decision in, the year 2000 or so, to have Act 221. There were good reasons. I remember talking to one of the legislators who passed that bill. He said it was the best thing he had ever done in his life to contribute to the state of Hawaii. Well, 221 was bashed for the next 10 years, and it went, out of favor. And we forgot why we adopted it in the first place. So if you are distracted at all points, if life and news and the fickle finger is fickle and distracted all the way up and down the line, you simply forget. You have a collective community memory lapse, and you can't remember why you were doing something or what you wanted to do, and you lose you lose the trail.
And with that, I remember now we have to take a break, actually. But I want to come back and talk about that, especially about Act 221 and some other things you may have to say when I ask you some tough questions. But you're listening to Keli'i Akina with my good friend Jay Fidell, who happens to be the president and founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. And we're on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. This is a Hana Kako. Let's work together. We'll be right back after this short break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Material here.
Absolutely. Well, welcome back to a Hana Kako, which means let's work together. We're a weekly program on ThinkTech Hawaii, the broadcast network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of Grassroots Institute. I'm here with somebody who is truly delightful. I enjoy his mind. I enjoy talking with him. I have a lot of fun. And I love the way he just throws up his hands and says, Shikata Ga Nai, which he tells me means it can't be helped. And we're going to come right back into that subject. President and founder of ThinkTech Hawaii, Jay Fidell. Jay, you know, in the break, I was telling you a little bit about...
First.
Yes, first.
When I say Shikata Ga Nai,
all right,
I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek, Keli'i. I hope you appreciate that.
So your tongue is there in your cheek.
I'm saying it's a bad idea to be complacent. I'm saying we should not just assume this and sort of, que sera, sera. I'm saying that what ThinkTech stands for is taking action about these things. So it's tongue-in-cheek when I say that.
And when I went to high school, I learned what that was called. It's called irony.
Thank you. It's just in literature or philosophy.
Very good. In life, in politics. You know, and one of those ironies came in the story of Act 221. A great idea in its inception, but somehow people forgot what it was all about. It kind of reminds me of the great Mahele. King Kamehameha III or fourth established this opportunity for the people of the land to acquire land and so forth.
Right,
and then it became a government program.
1848.
and it
failed.
That's right. And not so much because of the intention of putting private property into the hands of the commoner, but it was a government program. and of course, perhaps subject to the same kinds of things that Act 221 was. What do you think?
Well, I'm not that familiar with the things that made the great Mahele fail. And my view of it is we need another one, but better.
Sure.
And maybe broader and deeper.
Well, we can come back to that subject. We're going to talk a little more about that.
Yeah.
But you know what?
221 was a great idea. It was complex. There were people who didn't like it out of the box for various reasons, none of which that I knew were good reasons. And what they did is they pointed to, quote, abuses.
And we might just take
and you can take all the abuses you want.
Sure.
Because there's one accident at the traffic light doesn't mean you can the whole intersection, So I think that there was a very organized group that wanted it repealed or, dissolved or sunsetted early, which is what ultimately happened. And it's gone. And with it, the baby in the bathwater, with it, the tech industry has really dissolved. And it is a great tragedy for the state.
Now, let's just take a moment here to define what we're talking about. When we are thinking about this vehicle for tax credits, which ostensibly was going to attract investment in technology.
All right.
Just define it a little bit for our listeners what Act 221 was.
It was a tax credit. And if you had a tech company, it could get tax credits from the state, refundable tax credits, which are the best kind, and that would help you, raise capital, because the credits went to the individuals ultimately who made the investment, whether they be here or on the mainland.
Now, some of the criticism it has received is that it gave opportunity for a great many spurious companies that weren't serious tech endeavors, to get some money that rightly belonged to the tax collector. What do you say about that?
How many?
I don't know myself.
I'm sure there was some abuses. I mean, we knew that.
So you're saying it's the exception?
Who's the exception? I mean, $1.5 billion was put into the economy by way of investments in these companies. You can't shake a stick at that. And they grew, and people came from far away. Young people came, and the Pauhana crowd came back to Hawaii. They formed companies. They started creating a tech industry. There was excitement, enthusiasm. I remember the enthusiasm on the faces of all these kids. They can't be found now. They're gone.
Don't need to name.
They went back.
Right.
The industry has dissolved. So thank you to all the guys who beat up on 221.
Now there you go. Now you don't need to name names, but who are these people? Who is this amorphous mass that came out and attacked Act 221?
Well, it started with Linda Lingle. You remember that name?
Yeah, I happen to remember that name. Yeah. I think we all do.
Yeah. I mean, I was on her campaign committee back in 2000, 2001.
But didn't she have a strong Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism that was at the forefront of trying to establish technological innovations, including STEM in our education, and Act 221 and so forth?
Short answer or the long answer? No.
Okay. And why is that?
Hard to say, but she was attacking 221 almost immediately upon taking office. And, she had been advised that the way you deal with it deal with any abuse is you just write regulations. But instead of writing ordinary regulations, like, for example, the Internal Revenue Service would write on a statute that arguably had, the possibility of abuses. I mean, all tax statutes can be abused. It's a question of degree, it's a question of management. She didn't write those kinds of regulations. Her tax department didn't write them. They punished investors. And they were, fairly nasty and increasingly nasty. And I will never understand exactly what happened, but I can tell you that she was the primary reason that 221 was sunset early.
Well, what you're talking about is leadership.
And with ignominy.
Okay. You're talking about leadership at the highest levels here in the state. And just to recap what you've said, the basic idea of stimulating our tech economy, the basic idea of attracting innovative investment was absolutely necessary. It was a good idea, but the administration of and the support of the Act 221 program killed it. Now, how does that relate to Shikata Ga Nai?
Oh, because it became damaged goods.
Okay.
And if you asked some fellow in the street who was reading the Honolulu Advertiser and reporting what Linda Lingle was doing and all that, you asked some fellow on a street corner right outside here, what do you think of 221? He would say abusive. Okay. All right, but nobody, and even now today, it's how many years later, it's damaged goods. The whole thing is damaged goods. So we really do not have anything close to 221 in terms of incentivizing the development of the tech industry. This past year, there was some money allocated for the startups, peanuts. I think it was $2 million. Yeah. Peanuts. And so what's happened is people say, well, it can't be helped. It's just the way it is. Legislature, I'm not touching that. That's too hot to handle. Even, 4 or 5 years later, it's too hot to handle. Shikata Ga Nai.
Sure.
We'll leave it as it stands. We won't do anything. We won't try to recapture, the vision of the original legislation.
Okay.
And nobody has.
I was on the Big Island a few weeks ago, talking to ranchers near Parker Ranch and so forth. One of the gentlemen I spoke with was a pilot who flew cattle. He had one thing to say about flying live cattle in a plane. It's not fun. It's not fun for them. It's not fun for the pilot, and so forth.
Depends on how big the plane.
There you go. But one of the reasons he has to fly a small plane full of cattle that are not all that comfortable is because he can't put them into a truck, load them onto a ferry, and go island to island. And you, of all people, had a strong interest in a little venture, not a financial interest, but as a citizen, of a venture of some businessmen on the East Coast who decided to get a hui of money together and start the super ferry. Well, what about that? Was this something that just succumbed to Shikata Ga Nai?
Yes. I mean, it's really a perfect topic for the show if you want to talk about issues like that. What a huge tragedy. Keli'i, if you wanted to travel to the neighbor islands, see your family, go hiking, go for a picnic with your girlfriend. You know, in the old days, right after statehood, that cost you $30.
Yeah.
Now it costs you $300 just to get there. Nobody goes. The only people going on these daily trips, local people, are state employees. That's who goes, and we pay for that.
And prisoners being accompanied by them.
But there's no ferry. And why is there no ferry? Can you think of a good reason why there is no ferry?
Well, if we go back to Shikata Ga Nai, I think one of the reasons is we don't cry out. We don't say, we must have a ferry.
No, we say it is what it is. Que sera, sera. It can't be helped. If God wanted there to be a ferry, he would have made a ferry. He would have brought it down from heaven and made it ply these islands. He didn't do that. So therefore, we don't need no ferry.
So what did it succumb to?
Complacency and the damaged baggage, you know, kind of thing. It will not resurface. It's sunk to the bottom of the sea like the ancient mariner. It will not resurface in our lifetimes. That's how damaged it is.
We couldn't even bring the commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet to run that little fleet of two super ferries? Admiral Fargo?
Yeah, the commander, he was a great manager, and he had great management with him. It was a company run like a clock. They were doing great, but they were attacked every step of the way. I, for the life of me, cannot understand. But this leads to another phenomenon that I would like to mention.
Yes, please do.
It's called insular drift.
Insular drift.
Insular drift.
Give me your definition of that.
It's where some islands don't like other islands.
Okay.
You know, I think it was 1810 when Kamehameha the Great unified the islands, at least most of them, excluding Kauai. Kauai was never in the program.
I think it was back closer to 1778, but in any case...
Well, off the Poly.
There we go.
Off the Poly, right? And that was the great physical...
1810.
1810. And he succeeded in at least doing the eastern end of the chain, and, you know, to his credit. But did it really stick? It was by force. And I think under the current there, under the hood, there's still an entity between the islands. And some islands don't like other islands. They don't like the people from other islands. And so they don't want any ferry coming to their island.
Do you have a P.O. box where our listeners can write in droves if they don't like what you say?
Go on the website, ThinkTechHawaii.com.
There you go.
Plenty of opportunity.
But taking that concept of insular drift.
Okay, so over time, what's happened, and it's been more pronounced. And you know, years ago there were boats, right? Before airplanes, there were boats filled with people plying the islands, seeing their families, going for an outing, vacation, what have you. Businessmen. I mean, everybody was traveling back and forth. The amount of travel that we have by ordinary citizens now between these islands is a small fraction of what it used to be. And the islands drift. They really don't want to have much to do.
So this insular drift is like plate tectonics. They get further and further apart.
That's exactly what it is.
Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever flown in...
Tectonics, no. Thankfully.
There you go. Have you ever flown into Molokai with your GMO sign and experienced any of this?
Pro-GMO sign?
Yes.
Well, Molokai is a good example. I mean, they don't take prisoners on this issue. And, you know, they weren't going to have wind no matter what. No matter what the... you know, the arrangement was, no matter what kind of community benefits package, it didn't matter. They were never going to do that. And Lanai, too. Lanai really turned against that possibility. So those two islands are out of the formula now. And even Maui has some resistance, and Kauai has resistance based on the ferry. The ferry and the wind, it's all part of the same insular drift.
You know, when you talk about the ferry, you talk about the wind, you talk about Act 221. In addition,
that's not part of insular drift.
Right, but in addition to Shikata Ga Nai, we have another phenomenon that is part of that, it seems, and that is it's easy to hijack something good for the greater public in Hawaii it's easy for a small group of people to be able to stand up against that. Have you seen that take place?
Do you have an email address or something they can write in to express their view about your...
Absolutely, but I didn't say which small group it was. In fact, I'm the small group. We at Grassroots Institute of Hawaii are the small group standing up, trying to stop the evil of this world. But it does seem like that there's a lot of leverage.
When Obama came into office, I remember, he was quoted early on to say that we live in the world of the internet where everybody can vote on everything, and you don't need representative government because everyone can speak. And that's what we have. And it's really very visible in Hawaii because everybody can speak on everything.
Well, very good. With that quote from Hawaii's favorite son, I want to just thank you for listening to ThinkTech Hawaii today, watching us today on the Ehana Kako weekly program. My guest is president and founder of ThinkTech Hawaii, and he's giving his views on why in Hawaii everything is Shikata Ga Nai. We'll be right back after this.
I'm David Day, the host of Asia in Review. This is a ThinkTech program in which we take the issues of the Asia-Pacific region, whether they be in business, in foreign policy, in national security, or geopolitics. And we take those issues and we try to probe down in some real depth. Maybe it's not always politically correct, but we get to the truth. We do things that the regular media can't do. And the reason that we can do those things is because we here at ThinkTech have the contacts, we have the network, and we can take the time and explore the issues in depth. Tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. here at ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm David.
Aloha, I'm Sharon Moriwaki with the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. Please join Jay Fidell and me every Wednesday, 4 o'clock p.m. on Energy Wednesday. See you then.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumukuhua Theater, and when I was young I used to love watching Charlie Chan movies on Family Classic TV on Sunday afternoons. Our show at Kumukuhua that runs from August 22nd through September 22nd is called Will the Real Charlie Chan Please Stand Up? It's written by Nancy P. Moss and takes place right here in Chinatown. I really hope you'll come in and watch it. You will love it. It's everything about the movies that you loved and more. Go to kumukuhua.org to get more information and your tickets. We'll see you there.
Aloha and welcome back to Ehana Kako. We're here every week on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I do want to say thanks to Jay Fidell and his wonderful crew who are making it possible for Hawaii and the world to become all the more informed about technology, globalization, and a lot of other goodies. Today, we're just having fun. I'm picking the brain of this man who is truly, in some ways, a genius. In fact, in many ways. I'd love to hear what his opinions are. Jay Fidell, founder and president of ThinkTech Hawaii. We need to make this disclaimer that anything Jay says does not necessarily represent anything that can be held against him in a court of law. But with that said, here's my friend.
Right there, I have to unravel what you just said.
My friend Jay Fidell. Jay, let's continue with Shikata Ga Nai, the ironic statement that we just give up, nothing can be done about things going on in Hawaii. How about energy here? You know, we are one of the most fossil fuel dependent places on the planet. Even more so than Saudi Arabia, where there's greater diversification than in Hawaii. But is this another one of these matters that comes under the rubric Shikata Ga Nai? What can be done?
That's hard to say. You know, I'm not sure I'd put it under the rubric. I think we made certain progress. We've gotten a certain way down the road. We do have a lot more renewable energy working now and a lot more public acceptance of it than we did in 2008 when the initiative started. But if you ask me, you know, whether we move fast enough, whether we have enough public acceptance, whether we have a unified mind, you know, a collective mind on moving forward with it, I would say we're lacking a few things. I think we have to come together. We have to have a plan. It's been really slow tennis here. You play tennis? You look like you play tennis.
Ping pong.
When the, you know, the ball has to go over the net, goes over sort of slowly, and they come back slowly. And if we would move in a reasonable, you know, dispatch, then I think we'd do a lot better. We'd be a lot better off.
Well, would you say a good deal of what ultimately happens in terms of providing energy in Hawaii rests in the hands of a very small number of people and companies?
Well, that's true on the you know, the regulatory side. It's only 3 people on the PUC, and it's, you know, in large part it's only a few people in the 2 energy committees in the legislature, and there's a governor. So it's not a lot of people. Consumer advocate, not a lot of people. There are 47 or maybe more, 48 or 9 people on the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, but that's not a regulatory body. It's more like a forum organization.
And wouldn't it be true also on the commercial side in terms of who really owns the assets that are involved in energy production on a wide scale?
Well, that's a very good question. What I would have thought in the year 2008, I was there at the signing of this phenomenal agreement, this clean energy agreement. I would have thought that everybody would be working together to make this happen as soon as possible. There wasn't a moment to waste, because the oil prices were going to catch up with us and destroy our economy. And they are actually destroying our economy. If we have to pay $6-7 billion out of the state when it could stay in the state, that has a profound effect on our economy, and it's going to get worse. While that's happening, the infrastructure is declining. We could take that money and rebuild the infrastructure. So we're having the rug pulled out from under us, even yet still today, even though we made some progress. So, if it was my view, we'd have moved a lot faster. If it was my view, we'd have a lot fewer arguments. If it was my view, we would have an open tent on every possible type of energy. And some of them would be more expensive than others. We can't have a bargain with clean energy because we have to build the infrastructure. New infrastructure costs money. I would have thought that local investors, local structures like Kamehameha schools, like the employees retirement system, both of which have $10-12 billion in their kitty, would put some real money into energy and investing it in energy companies. Just as I had hoped they would put some real money into tech companies, which they didn't. Unfortunately, a lot of the investment that comes in to building renewable energy structures in these islands comes from somewhere else. That's not what I would have hoped. So our most valuable resource, our most important initiative is actually being funded by investment from somewhere else. That's not the optimum solution.
One of the things that I hear you saying is that there are multiple factors involved in getting us to where we are and where we're going in terms of the energy situation. And some of those are uncanny in terms of the way they're related. For example, as you know, that at Grassroots Institute, we're very concerned about the cabotage laws, the 1920 Maritime Act called the Jones Act, which requires that any ships that are used in port-to-port transport of cargo in the U.S. be built in the United States. When it comes to part of solving our energy problem, liquid natural gas, we can't get it here because there's not a single Jones Act compliant ship that can bring it to Hawaii.
We can get it here. I don't think that's a showstopper on LNG. I think there are other problems in having LNG accepted. For example, Blue Planet Association considers LNG a fossil fuel, no more, no less, and will not agree to its use even as a transitional fuel.
Are all fossil fuels the same?
The answer is no.
Shikata Ga Nai.
Some fossil fuels are more fossil fuel than other fossil fuels.
Just
George
like fossils.
Orwell. George Orwell,
Well, we've already gone beyond George Orwell.
Far beyond. So anyway, your point about LNG, though, LNG could be an important part of the transition. People are concerned about the cost of energy, so they oppose projects that they think are going to be expensive. Sometimes I don't understand the logic of that. And LNG, yes, it's fossil fuel, but it could take us through at a price that would be, reasonable and would be appealing to those people who claim that, fuel is too high. What I don't understand is why everybody opposes everything, and that's it's an element of Shikata Ga Nai. It's like, everybody's opposing everything, so let's do nothing. And that's what's happened in so many initiatives.
Well, several years ago when Dawes and Cooper came out with that book, Land and Power in Hawaii, there was the thesis that land was power. And this was during the heyday of Bishop Estate and so forth. And you were probably on getting consulting fees from them or from other landholders. So we'll leave that out of this. But the point is, do you think that, bottom line, there is a power structure, and maintaining that power structure, whether it's political, corporate, labor, or anything else, that weighs heavily into why we have the energy situation we have, why we have the the super ferry situation, why things are the way they are. Is it maintaining some kind of power equilibrium here in Hawaii? What are your thoughts about that? Because when you say Shikata Ga Nai, we're throwing up our hands, yes, but there may be a rational basis for that. It may be that there's a reason things stay the way they do.
Take geothermal.
Yeah.
Geothermal is really connected
today
with the undersea cable. We've been talking about the undersea cable since 2008. It was part of the Clean Energy Agreement to begin. I think it was just around this time of year, maybe November 2008. We haven't really done anything about it. We've done some studies about it. And I think, people, I don't know, it's a Hawaii phenomenon. You have some opposition, and it's an undifferentiated opposition. And then there's no progressive, alliance on the other side of that opposition. So it's a one-sided conversation. And then the thing goes like underground, like it's not spoken of very much. And next time you look, it's like off the table. And I worry a lot about undersea cable because I think that the undersea cable connects the islands. It's the other things, the other hand clapping to insular drift, isn't it? It's actually a connection, not only an electrical connection. It's a connection. We need each other. We serve each other. We help each other. We are together in this thing, whatever it is. So I'm very concerned that when you have this process where people oppose it, there's nobody to countervail on that. So it's Shikata Ga Nai, we just let it go, and it just sinks under the waves, and people forget about it. And we lost we tend to lose the direction we established earlier. It's the same thing as trying to develop a tech industry.
You mentioned earlier that one of the aims of ThinkTech Hawaii is to raise awareness. Obviously, not just to look at something, but in order to bring about change, in order to bring about progress. When you look at this idea of just throwing our hands up in Hawaii, what are some of the things that can happen that could result in a shift in the tide? What are some things that could bring a change?
To follow on your point a little while ago, you talked about some dark power structure that was controlling things. I'm not.
Well, it's just another way to say status quo in many ways.
Well, okay. I mean, but you implied that there was a group of people, a small group of people, who was somehow controlling these things. I'm not sure that's really true. I think they're just as sensitive as the media and all of us to people who complain, and anyone can complain, and complaints can sink the ship sometimes. So when we say raising public awareness, we want to raise a public consciousness on these issues. We want the public to be involved in the decision-making process, to have its own, view of things, for the public to actually, maybe this is a reach, but to actually become involved in the decision process, not just be the victim of one, noisy voice and another noisy voice, but to actually take a position. People don't do that. They say, "Oh, Shikata Ga Nai." It is what it is. If they're arguing, I'm out of here. I can't do anything, so I'm not going to do anything. And we would like to see that change.
Well, you're talking about something as old as Athens, the democratic process, the creating of a public forum, and so forth. And that's what we're trying to do at Grassroots Institute, and that's why we partnered together on this
that's why
program.
we have the Norman Rockwell
Absolutely.
painting up there.
We're in Jay's studio here in downtown Honolulu, and there's a beautiful Norman Rockwell painting. So many themes of Rockwell resonate with people who want participatory democracy. Well, one of the ways, in fact, that viewers and listeners can access online information, just as Jay is talking about, is to go to thinktechhawaii.com, where you'll find copies of this program and all the other dozen or so programs that are being produced weekly here on this broadcast network. We're going to come back in just a moment for some final thoughts with Jay Fidell, not his final thoughts, but final thoughts on the topic here as we explore some of the more interesting things about living here in Hawaii. I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute. We'll be right back after this.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii's broadcast network. I'm Keli'i Akina. This is Ehana Kako, and I learned an expression today from Jay Fidell. It happens to be Shikata Ga Nai, but he means it ironically. What can we do about this? Que sera, sera. We live in a culture here in Hawaii which seems to, in many ways, dampen progress and change. And in these final moments of our program today, I want to ask Jay what really we can do about this as people who care, as people who want to lead, as people who want to make Hawaii a better place. I'm Keli'i Akina with Grassroots Institute. Jay Fidell is my guest today, and the president and founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. Jay, is it leadership? Is that what it boils down to? Have you found the candidate whom you're going to back and support financially and get out there and wave signs for and so forth? Is that the answer?
People talk about that all the time. And, there's so many people who said it's just a question of leadership. You got to find somebody who will stand up and do it. We got to find another John Burns,
There you go.
Like that. But it's very hard to do that. And, the old story about the hammer getting hammered down, the nail
that sticks up gets hammered down.
Or the alamihi in the crab pot.
There you go. The crab that tries to climb out gets pulled down by the others.
It's very hard to allow, a potential leader, the room, the breath to get out and do his thing. So I'm not all that optimistic that that any leader is going to be able to do that. I mean, even assuming, for example, Neil Abercrombie has some great ideas, he has trouble in dealing with his own government to make them happen. And any governor would have that here. And you have to have a system for dealing with that, and it's very hard to develop that system.
But you've been talking about, and we've used different terms, mindset, or the air we breathe, and so forth, this Shikata Ga Nai. Can we get any more specific so that we can actually deal with something
you want
that
my
we
suggestion?
can change? Oh, yes.
The thing is, it's like skiing.
All right.
When you go skiing, you can't think of every piece of advice in the book, because then you'll ski badly. You have to think of one thing,
Not hitting a tree.
For me, it was imagining an orange in my arch.
Okay,
everybody has his own thing, So what is the orange in the arch here? It's the kids, and it's taking responsibility for the kids. I'm reminded of a story I heard only yesterday about a fellow young man. He was 13 years old or so, and he had no plan. And he's 3 years away from graduating high school. No plan for what he wanted to do in life. No plan for what schools he wanted to, what studies, where he was going to go. And his parents had no plan for him either. And his school will teach him what he needs to know. We'll leave him in public school. We won't take a whole lot of time out to help him. And he's taking calculus now. We don't know calculus, so we're not going to be able to help him with that. So the kid's on his own or with his peers, and he's not going to get, enough to be a leader or to be a contributing member of the polity, if you will. So I'm thinking, if you wanted to look for the orange in the arch, it would be something around that. It would be, look, if he's 13 or 12 or 11 or even 10, let's make a plan for him. Let's make a life plan for him. Let's plan what school he's going to go to, what he's going to study, what's important to him other than sports, and let's make him marry Hawaii. Wherever he goes, we want him to go away for a while. Probably to Asia would be the best thing, because we do a lot of Asia stuff, and it's very important to local kids. It's very important for Hawaii to have that connection. But then ultimately, we want him to come back. We want him to participate. We want him to demand and insist on the best that we can have. Hawaii must be the best. It's alone in the universe. It's alone. It's isolated by thousands of miles. If we don't distinguish ourselves, if we don't take excellence as our standard, we're going to be backwater. So we have to see that. Everyone must see
Sure.
that. And the way you do that, the orange in the arch, okay, is to make a plan for your kids and teach them this early.
You know, you're speaking to something very dear on Patty and my heart, and we're just so delighted that, and we think the best thing in our lives is the 4 children we've been blessed with. And as parents, we have tried our best. We certainly aren't perfect parents, but I have to agree with you, Jay. The hope for tomorrow is in our children, whether they're our own biological children or the children of Hawaii. And so we come back to education. We come back to helping people to understand ideas that matter, that work. And I think that's what you're doing. Before we leave today, I want to give you an opportunity to say a little bit about the program itself, ThinkTech Hawaii, and some of the broadcast venues like cable and so forth. So, Jay, look at that camera over there and talk to your public, your admiring public over there. Tell them a little bit about ThinkTech Hawaii, what they need to know to keep themselves informed.
Everything's on an evolution, right? And we have evolved, we have expanded, and we have focused in most recent times on doing this in the studio here, and doing, a dozen shows or more every week with people like you and the guests that you bring in. We range everywhere from, public issues to the arts in Hawaii, to technology, to Asia in Review on a number of shows and a number of levels. We are bringing, in my view, a wealth of information.
Yes.
And it's those kids, those 13-year-old kids that I would like, they should look at this. It runs all night, We have what we call the parents, shouldn't stop them. the midnight playlist,
There
so
you go.
We just keep on running these shows.
So when I walk into his bedroom and tell him to go to sleep, he said, "But Dad, I'm watching ThinkTech Hawaii."
Well, that's okay, son. And now if he's playing some computer game, it's another story. Anyway, so we're trying to develop a wealth of information, and we're migrating to the internet to broadcast on Ustream with high-definition video and good audio. We're broadcasting our audio on Spreaker.com. We're posting everything on YouTube, and we're playing it also on Olelo, and we have a show on OC16 that plays 7 times a week. So we're trying to get our way of thinking out there.
Very good.
And our way of thinking is the inclusive way, the open way, seeking excellence for the state, seeking a future for the state, not letting it go to backwater, not letting our kids run away and make a life elsewhere without thinking of coming home.
Well, Jay, I appreciate greatly that you've opened your arms to a Grassroots Institute and to me here. We believe in individual liberty, which you believe in. We believe in limited, accountable government. We believe in free markets or freer markets. And I want to thank you for hosting me and us over here. What do you think about Grassroots Institute? You've been watching us over the last several months as I've had the opportunity to work with this group of people and so forth. And I'm so grateful that we're able to partner together.
I'm delighted to know you, Keli'i. I think you're doing a great job. I think Grassroots Institute has never been as healthy and valuable and contributory to the community as it is now. I look forward to seeing you continue more of the same, and I'm happy that you're here in our series. I don't always agree with everything you say, as you know, but that's okay because, Norman Rockwell.
There you go.
Freedom of speech. The 4 freedoms, and that's the first one of them right here in our studio. So,
and Mom's apple pie, or in my case, Mom's taro pie.
We are delighted to have you here, and we have great admiration for you and Grassroots Institute.
Thank you, Jay. My guest today has been the founder and president of ThinkTech Hawaii, doing a fabulous job of giving Hawaii an alternative way of accessing information upon which to make good decisions. And that's where we are united together. We don't have to agree on every issue, but the fact that we can together sit down and have the dialogue, the conversation, is really what it's all about. And so I want to commend ThinkTech Hawaii and welcome you back to future editions of E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. We're here every week. I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute, saying mahalo to all of you viewers and listeners, and to my good friend Jay Fidell. Jay, thank you so much.
Shikata Ga Nai.
Oy vey.
Aloha.